Hey, friends. So, interesting little insight or impression showed up this morning. And I don't know how else to say it, but I was wrestling with some of what's going on for me now in terms of circumstances of my life, dilemmas. And by the way, I'm deliberately non-specific about these things, both because the purpose of this post isn't to dwell on those things or to kind of unpack the nitty gritty details of my own wrestling with things on the internet. The purpose of the post is to bring a perspective to those things that helps clarify them. And I feel like that's also something that offers viewers or listeners like you more than if I'm just talking about the specifics of my problem. So I sometimes feel like I'm being cryptic when I avoid talking specifically, and I'm really not trying to be cryptic. I'm really just trying to keep my focus on the larger principles at play, the larger dynamics at play, because ultimately those are the universal aspect of our being human, our humanness. So, anyway, I had some shit that I was looking at. And I suddenly was struck by the realization that if I look back over the course of my life, I've always felt this way. I've always felt like I'm in a dilemma of some kind. And initially, I was like, wow, what if that means I can't get out of this? What if it means I actually can't change? What if I'm a baked cake? Or this is just the way I am? And I've been thinking about the Arthur C. Brooks interview that Tim Ferriss did that I've now listened to for I've listened to it twice. I'm about halfway through it again, maybe not quite. He talks about some really important and really, I think, helpful tools in that podcast. One of which is a failure journal. The idea of the failure journal is anything that feels like or is or constitutes a failure in your life, you have to write it down in your failure journal and then leave 2 lines free after the entry, and then put reminders in your phone to go back 1 month after the event and write down something you learned that you would have forgotten if it weren't for this event. And 6 months later, you come back and you write down something good that happened as a result of this event. Now, full disclosure, I heard about this like 3 days ago. I've not implemented this in my life. But there's that combined with what he called the Maranasati death meditation, which is basically a meditation on our ego death or the variety of ego deaths that we most fear. And the process really, as I understand it, involves evoking, either conjuring, we might have actual tangible images we could look at, but it could just be a visualization of what a particularly painful kind of failure that we are afraid of experiencing, whether it's professional, personal, medical, legal, I don't know, what different kinds of failures people might be afraid of. But we actually visualize that thing happening to us in sort of like maybe not just one image, but maybe like a series of progressive images that take us deeper and deeper into what it would feel like to experience that form of failure, which is really leading our ego towards its own death consciously. And what he says it does is it cuts through the illusion of the tragedy that this ego death is for us. Because when we actually face it regularly and kind of stare into the abyss, we realize I'm not that. I'm something at my essence. I'm something wholly transcendent. Not just of this particular death fear thing, but of the entire identity that has that death fear. But I'm transcendent to the me that could ever be afraid in this way of this thing. Because by kind of chronologically and very sort of deliberately, consciously laying out the beats of the process, we inherently at the same time recognize our separateness from it. We recognize our capacity to stand back from it. And so I'm talking through all these exercises that I just learned like 2 days ago. But when I was having this feeling this morning I was looking at myself and going, man, I've always felt like this on some level. I've always been like this on some level. What if I can't change? The idea of the Maranasati death meditation came back to me, and I thought, well, what if I accept this? What if I accept myself as I am? What if I'm allowed to be, and then I started thinking about everybody else I know. And I thought, would I trade where I am? Would I rather be where anybody, do I know anybody in whose shoes I'd rather be? And I thought, I don't know. Most people I know also seem to be wrestling with something. They're not wrestling with the same things that I'm wrestling with, but they're wrestling with something in their life in the same way that I'm wrestling with the things that I'm wrestling with. The grass is greener sometimes when I see those lives. There's like that would be a much more dignified thing to wrestle with, right? That would be a thing to wrestle with that I could still hold my head high and say I was wrestling with that. But the fact is, we never know that. The reason why someone has a sticking point in their life, a challenge in their life, is because that's their blind spot. And just because it looks great to us, because it somehow feels less emasculating or denigrating than our particular dilemma, doesn't mean that that's how it feels to them. And so then I was like, well, all right, what if there's nothing wrong? What if even the feeling, what if even a lifelong feeling that there's something wrong actually constitutes a condition where there's nothing wrong? What if I can just accept? What if I'm just allowed to be a little bit broken, a little bit not broken, but a little. What if I'm allowed to be not perfect? What if I'm allowed to be struggling with this? You know, one of the harshest criticisms that I think I make of myself is I expect myself to not have to struggle. And that's a double whammy, because it both takes my eye off the game, it takes me out of the game of struggling, and it makes it denigrates my struggle. It dismisses the struggle that I'm actually experiencing as somehow not the point of life. Somehow this dilemma that I'm dealing with is actually not the point of life. I'm supposed to get past this dilemma and get somewhere else, and then I'll be living life. But that has not happened yet. So what if there's nothing wrong with this struggle? I allowed my daughter to sleep late this morning. She was really tired last night, and then she woke up at 3 a.m. I've been up since 3 a.m. But I better go get her. She's going to be very confused why I have not gotten her out of bed to play violin. But that's my insight. What if there's nothing wrong? What if I'm allowed to struggle? If those two things could be sort of imprinted in my prefrontal cortex as the way that I interpret my daily life, I think I might have it easier, enjoy it more, and quite probably make more progress. So that's what I got today, folks. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you soon.